Good evening, YouTube. It is 1954 on a Tuesday evening, St. Patrick's Day. Thank you. A little cool down here in the bunker. I'm wearing my Navy watch cap. Not the one I had in the Navy, that's long gone, along with my pea coat and everything else, which I outgrew. This way, not this way. Anyway, I promised you guys a story, or should I say a reading, from a book that influenced me a great deal in my younger years. I read it in the mid 90s in the past century. And the book is Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. Now, Ayn Rand is her pen name, it's not her true name. If you look her up on Wikipedia, you can read all about her, but she was born very early in the 20th century and experienced the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia. And her father's property was annexed. I believe he was a pharmacist by the Russian Revolution, or the Communist Revolution, I should say. She fled to America and spent some time, I think at first in California. She was a screenwriter and she was an author. And she developed a school of thought known as Objectivism. And Objectivism embraces several things, but namely it embraces laissez-faire capitalism. Now, I want to say from the start that I do not necessarily believe everything in Ayn Rand's philosophy. I get lots of takeaway from it, though, in terms of good, thought provoking ideas. But at any rate, the story centers around an independent railroad company. I believe it's publicly owned. And it was back in the days, of course, before Amtrak, when the railroad companies got all nationalized, because they eventually all went, I think, bankrupt. Or maybe there's another point of view on that. But the railroad company is in Atlas Shrugged is a fictitious railroad company known as Taggart Transcontinental Railways. And I believe it's primarily a passenger rail system across the United States. And it's got a legacy of ownership through generations. The man who founded it, whose last name was Taggart, passed it on to his descendants. And the CEO of the company is a man by the name of James Taggart. And he's sort of one of these, what you might consider a trust fund kid. Although he is CEO of the company, he inherited it. He did not work for anything that he has. And he's very much into cronyism, crony capitalism. He doesn't necessarily seek out the best people to do business with. He mostly does favors for friends. and there's a fair amount of politics going on in the book. A little bit of housekeeping. I'm still from earlier smoking the Irish Peterson system pipe, the XL315 rusticated. And I apologize for the lighting. I needed light to read by, of course. And I probably could have put something a little bit more illuminating on my face and my little set here. And of course, being that it's St. Patrick's Day, I'm still smoking the Peterson Irish cask. It's a really good blend. I enjoy it. Very mellow, and it's got Perique in it and all that, but a very mellow Perique blend. Lots of good flavor. It's a great blend. So there's so many things going on in this book, but I cut out a certain section of it, which expounds on a theme, and I'm going to read for a while. And so I told you one of the characters. I needed to give you a little bit of a uh, forethought on it. This part of the story starts out with a man named Kip Chalmers. And Kip Chalmers is a politician who's running for office. And I already told you James Taggart is the owner of or the CEO of Taggart Transcontinental Railways. Guy named Wesley Mouch, who I think is either a businessman or a politician, I'm not sure. But these names will get mentioned throughout the story. And I don't know how Ayn Rand comes up with these names, but there's a guy by the name of I can't find it. I'll mention it when I come across it. Tinky or Winky or something like that. He's I don't know. I think he's a politician. But you'll pick up on this and try to gather the context as it goes along. So I want to say, please leave your comments down below in the bucket and let me know, am I reading too long? Are the readings too short? What's your preference? I don't want to bore you and I don't want to put you to sleep. So I'm thinking maybe 15-minute segments might be a good thing to start with. If you want me to go longer than that, maybe a half an hour or so, I can do that. I want to know what your preference is, and I want this to be enjoyable for you and enlightening, as it was for me. So without further ado, I will start. So the scene is a railway car. It's actually a club car where people are having drinks, and the politician Kip Chalmers has his own private car on the train, and he's running for Congress, and he's going to a rally. Kip Chalmers swore as the train lurched and spilled his cocktail over the tabletop. He slumped forward, his elbow in the puddle, and said, "God damn these railroads. What's the matter with their track? You'd think with all the money they've got, they'd disgorge a little. so we wouldn't have to bump like farmers on a hay cart. His three companions did not take trouble to answer. It was late and they remained in their lounge merely because an effort was needed to retire to their compartments. The lights of the lounge looked like feeble portholes in a fog of cigarette smoke, dank with the odor of alcohol. It was a private car, which Chalmers had demanded and obtained for his journey. It was attached to the end of the Comet, and it swung like the tail of a nervous animal as the Comet coiled through the curves of the mountains. "I'm going to campaign for the nationalization of the railroads," said Kip Chalmers, glaring defiantly at a small gray man who looked at him without interest. "That's going to be my platform plank. I've got to have a platform plank. I don't like Jim Taggart. He looks like a soft-boiled clam. To hell with the railroads. It's time we took them over." "Go to bed," said the man, "if you expect to look like anything human at the big rally tomorrow." "Do you think we'll make it?" "You've got to make it." "I know I've got to, but I don't think we'll get there on time. This goddamn snail of a super special is hours late." "You've got to be there, Kip," said the man ominously, in that stubborn monotone of the unthinking which asserts an end without concern for the means. "God damn you! Don't you suppose I know it?" Kip Chalmers had curly blonde hair, and a shapeless mouth. He came from a semi-wealthy, semi-distinguished family, but he sneered at wealth and distinction in a manner which implied that only top-rank aristocrat could permit himself such a degree of cynical indifference. He had graduated from a college which specialized in breeding that kind of aristocracy. The college had taught him that the purpose of ideas is to fool those who are stupid enough to think. He had made his way in Washington with the grace of a cat burglar, climbing from bureau to bureau as from ledge to ledge of a crumbling structure. He was ranked as semi-powerful, but his manner made laymen mistake him for nothing less than Wesley Mouch. For reasons of his own particular strategy, Kip Chalmers had decided to enter popular politics and to run for election as legislator. From California. Though he knew nothing about that state except for the movie industry and the beach clubs, his campaign manager had done the preliminary work, and Chalmers was now on his way to face his future constituents for the first time at an over-publicized rally in San Francisco tomorrow night. The manager had warned him to start a day earlier, but Chalmers had stayed in Washington to attend a cocktail party and had taken the last train possible. He had shown no concern about the rally until this evening, when he noticed that the Comet was running 6 hours late. His three companions did not mind his mood. They liked his liquor. Lester Chuck, his campaign manager, was a small aging man with a face that looked as if it was once been punched in and had never rebounded. He was an attorney who, some generations earlier, would have represented shoplifters and people who stage accidents on the premises of rich corporations. Now he found that he could do better by representing men like Kip Chalmers. Laura Bradford was Chalmers' current mistress. He liked her because his predecessor had been Wesley Mouch. She was a movie actress who had forced her way from competent featured player to incompetent star, not by means of sleeping with studio executives, but by taking the long distance shortcut of sleeping with bureaucrats. She talked economics instead of glamour for press interviews, in the belligerently righteous style of a third rate tabloid. Her economics consisted of the assertion that we've got to help the poor. Gilbert Keith Worthing, hyphenated name Keith Worthing, was Chalmers' guest for no reason that either of them could discover. He was a British novelist who would he was a British novelist of world fame who had been popular 30 years ago. Since then, nobody bothered to read what he wrote, but everybody accepted him as a walking classic. He had been considered profound for uttering such things as freedom? Do not stop, let's stop talking about freedom. Freedom of physical accidents. Freedom is impossible. Man can never be free of hunger, of cold, of disease, or of physical accidents. He can never be free of the tyranny of nature. So why would he object to tyranny of a political dictatorship? When all of Europe put into practice the ideas which he had preached, he came to live in America. Through the years, his style of writing and his body had grown flabby. At 70, he was an obese old man with retouched hair and a manner of scornful cynicism retouched by quotations from the yogis about the futility of all human endeavor. Kip Chalmers had invited him because it seemed to look distinguished. Gilbert Keith Worthing had come along because he had no particular place to go. God damn these railroad people, said Kip Chalmers. They're doing it on purpose. They want to ruin my campaign. I can't miss that rally. For Christ's sake, Lester, do something. I've tried, said Lester Tuck. At the train's last stop, he had tried by long-distance telephone to find air transportation to complete their journey, but there were no continental flights scheduled for the next 2 days. If they don't get me there on time, I'll have their scalps in their railroad. Can't we tell the damn conductor to hurry? You've told him 3 times. I'll get him fired. He's given me nothing but a lot of alibis about their messy technical troubles. I expect transportation, not alibis. They can't treat me like one of their day coach passengers. I expect them to get me where I want to go when I want it. Don't they know that I am on this train? They know it by now, said Laura Bradford. Shut up, Kip. You bore me. And with that, I will end this reading of Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand. Once again, let me know, too long, too short. the story progresses and it gets better. So with that, I'll bid you good night. Take care, folks.